All right, well, welcome to the free exam orientation meeting. I'm delighted that you're all here. And what I'd like to do is just to indicate, first of all, what Gerry Grossman Seminars does. We prepare people for the California Law and Ethics exams for MFTs, LCSWs, and LPCCs. And we also prepare people for the California clinical exam for MFTs, for the ASWB national exam for social workers. And we have courses, we have class materials that you could utilize, and test banks for all those exams that can be really valuable resources you're preparing for your exams. We've been doing this work for 33 years, and it's really gratifying to know that we have helped thousands of people achieve their licenses. We provide a variety of services. We provide child abuse classes for people who need that. We have independent study options if that meets your learning style. We have mock exams. We provide individual tutoring for people as they approach their exam, exam-related hypnotherapy, and customer support is available throughout the weekdays. In terms of scheduling your exam, the current provider for the California law exams as of September of 2018 is PSI. And you can go and make an appointment there by calling 877-392-6422. That's available 24 hours a day. Or you can go to their website and make an appointment there. Now, if somebody schedules an appointment for the beginning of a month, and now it's the 25th of the month, and they're going, I'm not really ready for this, then what you can do is you can just go and reschedule it as long as it's within the time period where you have to take the exam, and that's not a problem. However, if somebody gets within 2 business days of taking their exam, then what they need to do is take it, because otherwise it would be seen as if they failed the exam. Pearson VUE is the administrator of the national ASWB exam, and they are available by phone, 888-579-3926, Monday through Fridays, and there's also a website for them as well. Now, once somebody is qualified to take that exam and they've applied, then there's a procedure where they will let you know of available test times and you would take that. All the organizations involved in the testing are in accordance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. If somebody needs a special accommodation, as long as there is documentation that verifies that need, then the BBS, PSI, Pearson VUE will accommodate people. There will be a time frame around that of like 90 days before you're planning on taking the exam of making that request for a special accommodation. Now, if somebody takes their California Law and Ethics exam and they are unsuccessful in passing that exam, then there is a 3-month wait period before somebody can take the exam before. And they would need to make an application, send a check to the Behavioral Sciences Fund in order to do that. Once somebody is qualified to take the exam, they would be able to get a handbook that explains the exam process and what are the content that is being tested for. Now, we highly recommend that you go to your test center, if at all possible, before the day of your exam, so that you know where it's located, you know where the parking is, you can go in and see what the setup is, check out where the restroom is, etc. Now, this may seem a little silly, but I've been preparing people for their exams for 33 years, and There have been a couple people who've run out of gas on the way to their exams, believe it or not. So they were probably very focused on their studying and weren't paying attention to that mundane detail of, do I have gas in my car? So just make sure you take care of yourself. And you want to travel light to the exam. Exam protocol is very specific about what you can bring and what you can't bring into the room. So let's talk about examination fashion. Acceptable clothing is lightweight shirts, sweaters, pullovers, but nothing with pockets or hoods that could conceal information. Unacceptable clothing also includes hats, except for religious apparel. Nothing bulky like coats, shawls, hooded clothing, etc. Other prohibited items. Can't bring in your purse, your briefcase. You can't bring in your cell phone. Now, I understand that's a really big change for a lot of us who have cell phones available to us all the time. And so you may experience DTs, not having your phone, which I call digital tremens. And so you can't have watches in there because you could have hidden information on the dial face of your watch. They're going to be providing you with a pencil. So this really nice Gerry Grossman Seminars pen you got at the workshop, you won't be able to bring that in. And also you can't bring in any good luck items like rabbit foots or shamrocks or your teddy bear, etc. Now when you go to the exam setting, you need to make sure that you have current identification. It could be your driver's license or a passport, but it needs to be current. People have been turned away from the exam because their driver's license was expired. Another thing that you really want to pay attention to is that your name matches the name that the testing organization knows you by. For example, if you were born as Maria Garcia, and then you have married Mr. Johnson, and you changed your identification to Maria Johnson right away. So that's what your driver's license is. But the board knows you as Maria Garcia, there's going to be a problem at the testing site. So I would recommend that Maria not change her name officially until she's done with her exam. Her choice, of course. When you get to the examination room, you're going to be thumbprinted. You're going to be photographed. And on that photograph, you will be at your photogenic best, obviously, the day of your exam. So there it is, your picture on the upper right-hand corner of the screen. You might ask to have it blocked by a Post-it, but that would be totally up to the discretion of the test center manager. So you're registered for the exam, and you're going to be directed to a semi-private testing station. It's like a college library nook. So you have 15 minutes in order to kind of like get the lay of the land. So you learn how to negotiate the keyboard, how to mark questions for review, etc. And that time on your tutorial does not come out of your examination time. Now, when you're in the exam, you want to take care of yourself. If, for example, you're really sensitive to sound, then ask for earplugs, ask for a headset. And in fact, I recommend that you go and practice doing that, be at home, so it feels familiar and comfortable to you. And also, how are you going to take care of your anxiety when you're in the exam? Are you deep breathing, praying, saying an affirmation? That's an important part of the exam. Now, the way that I conceptualize preparing for the exam is you're in the business of creating a very sturdy three-legged stool. And the one leg of the stool is information. If you don't have the necessary information for the law exam or for theoretical perspectives for the clinical exam, that's going to be a problem. So you really need to make sure you have a solid foundation of information. The second leg of your stool is examination test-taking strategies. And that's something that we really emphasize in our classes and on our videos in preparing for the exam, that you know how you are going to unwrap these questions and approach the questions in a very efficient manner. And the third leg of our stool is anxiety management. And that's very important for you to know how you are going to manage your anxiety. A little anxiety is a good thing in the exam. It can give you an edge, it can be a motivating force. But too much anxiety can be impairing. So we want to make sure that you know how to keep your anxiety in their manageable limits. The California Law and Ethics exam is a 90-minute exam. It consists of 75 questions, and of those 75 questions, 25 of them are experimental. So every third question doesn't count. And so you won't know which one of those questions are experimental. They don't have a big E in front of them or a little guinea pig picture. But I would say to you, if there's a question that really catches you off guard, I would recommend reframing it and saying, you know what, I bet you that's an experimental question, and just move along. Pacing is a very important part of the exam. Your timer is going to be set for 90 minutes for the California Law exam. There it is. So there's your time, and these are the number of questions you've done, which at this point is 0. So the clock is going to go down. So when that clock reaches 60, you want to make sure you've done at least 25 questions. When the clock gets down to 30, make sure you've done at least 50 questions. And when the clock is nearing 0, then of course you will have done all 75 questions. So you want to pace yourself. Those are your milestones as you're approaching your exam. So make sure that you are aware of what that feels like to do that number of questions. And the way to do that is really to utilize the online Gerry Grossman seminars test banks for the law exams to do that. The examination cut score, the passing score for the law exam, can change from round to round. But you'll be in good shape if you are scoring like 75% on your practice exams. People who are unsuccessful with taking the law and ethics exam have to wait 90 days before they can take it again. And if somebody doesn't pass the law and ethics exam within their current renewal period, then there is a requirement that somebody take a 12-hour law and ethics course before they can renew. And certainly Gerry Grossman Seminars offers this training. For MFTs, the clinical exam consists of 170 questions, of which 150 questions are scorable, with 20 questions being experimental. Now, the good news for the California clinical exam is that law and ethics, which at this point you would have passed, is represented on the clinical exam. And currently, law and ethics questions represent 28% of the California clinical exam. So this is an area that presumably would be a strength because you've already passed the law and ethics exam, and with a little refreshing of that information puts you in a good position. Now, if somebody is unsuccessful in passing the California clinical exam, then there is a 120-day wait period before somebody could take it again. For LCSW candidates taking the clinical exam, we have a similar setup. It's a 4-hour exam, just like the MFT exam was, It consists of 170 questions, of which 150 of those questions are scorable. The ASWB exam is not a California-oriented exam. So, California law is not on this exam. If somebody is unsuccessful in passing their ASWB exam, then they have to wait 90 days before they can retake that exam. Okay, let's talk about the percentage emphasis on the MFT and the LCSW Law and Ethics exam. Currently, law represents 40% of the exam, with the most represented area pertaining to limits of confidentiality and mandated reporting. Ethics consists of 60% of the exam, with the most highly weighted area being therapeutic relationship. For the LPCC Law and Ethics exam, percentages are a little different. The law represents 48% of the LPC Law and Ethics exam, with the heaviest weighted area being confidentiality and privilege. Ethics is the remaining 52% of the exam, with the standard of practice being the most heavily weighted area, but followed very closely by therapeutic relationships. For the MFT clinical exam, there are 6 content areas. We have clinical evaluation, which represents 20% of the exam. Crisis management represents 12% of the exam. And very importantly, treatment planning and treatment both represent 20% of the exam. And I would say for most candidates approaching the MFT California clinical exam, that is the area that most likely needs to be strengthened. Then we have ethics, that's 16% of the exam, and then law is 12% of the exam. So there are the percentages. And for the ASWB national exam, there are 4 domains. Human development, diversity and behavior in the environment represents 24% of the exam. Assessment, diagnosis, and treatment planning is 30% of the exam. We have psychotherapy, clinical interventions, and case management is 27% of the exam. And then professional ethics and values represents 19% of the exam. Now, let's talk about some strategies. First of all, if you're an MFT candidate approaching your clinical exam, or if you are an ASW candidate, you have done for MFTs at least 3,000 hours clinically. And for social workers, you have done 3,200 hours. You have a lot of experience under your belts. So, trust your first initial reaction to a question. And what I've seen in people in classes or when people are taking mock exams, people have a tendency of overthinking a question, and people change right answers to wrong answers. So just trust yourself. You, of course, change an answer if you have a compelling reason to do it, you have a new understanding of the question than you had before, or you're now remembering information you previously didn't remember. You want to pace yourself. The clinical exam's 4 hours. It's a marathon. So you want to, in fact, give yourself breaks. And what I would recommend is that you view this as 4 one-hour tests. So we're going to go over to the whiteboard here. Okay, the timer is going to be set for 240 minutes. And these are the number of questions that you have done. And at this point, you've done 0. So if we're going to view this as 4 one-hour tests, then these are going to be our milestones here. When you get done with your first hour, make sure you have done at least 45 questions. When you're done with the second hour, you've done at least 90 questions. You're done with your third hour, you've done at least 135 questions, and that gives you a little buffer so that you complete all 170 questions by the time the timer goes out. Don't leave any question unanswered, because at least you'll have a 25% chance of getting it right. And then give yourself breaks. When you're done with the first hour, go and just clear your mind. If you need to use the restroom, go do that. If you don't, just sit there and kind of like be aware of your breathing as it goes in and out of your body. Take care of yourself. Now, although it's highly unusual, there have been exam irregularities that happen. Maybe a computer isn't working. Maybe there was other distractions, like a fire alarm going off while you're taking your exam. So if that's the case, file an incident report with the test center manager the day of your exam. Now, I want to talk to you right now about a very important part of preparing for the exam, which is our test bank. People learn experientially by doing questions. And our test bank is designed to mirror the look and the feel of the examination computer screen. And there's a lot of advantages to the test bank. You can track your progress as you go along, and it'll save your progress. You can use the test bank in study mode, where you do a question and then you see the rationale right away. You can do the test bank in exam mode, where you do a complete exam. For the clinical, it would be 170 questions, and the timer would be set for 4 hours. And see how you did with that pacing. You can access the test bank from any computer. You could even do it on your mobile phone if you want. Now, one of the things that we've done is that we actually have the ability, you have the ability to upload your picture. So it would simulate there we go, here comes your picture back into focus again. So it would simulate the look and feel of the PSI screen, or the Pearson VUE screen, by having your picture up there. I can't overemphasize how very, very important it is for you to use the test bank. And the next area I want to talk about is we have created an exam readiness scorecard. And this was created because people would call up and say, I didn't pass my exam. I would look at their usage and I would say, you hardly touched your test bank. That's such an important resource for you. And so let's look at this person. There's a guy, John Smith. He has barely touched his MFT California clinical exam. His overall progress is about 5%, and he only did just a little bit on a content area quiz. You don't want to be like Mr. Smith. You want to be using that test bank so those areas are at least 75% of this graphic interface. Nobody leaves our seminar without understanding how ultra important it is to be using the test bank. Here's what we offer for the law and ethics exams. We have a one-day workshop. We have an online test bank, as you all know. We have law and ethics books that are dedicated for MFT, LCSWs, and LPCCs. We have flashcards that are in fact designed specifically for those 3 disciplines. And we have law and ethics audios. In terms of the clinical exam, we offer a 2-day program for both the MFT California clinical exam and the LCSW clinical exams. And those 2 days are just packed full of information and, very importantly, test-taking strategies, and we do questions throughout those workshops, and people learn a lot by experientially doing questions. The California clinical exam includes a test bank. We have very comprehensive, well-developed books for it, flashcards, audios, and we have a theory comparison chart as well as a crisis assessment and management chart. Now, for people who want to learn interactively but from a distance, we do have a video package for the law and ethics exams, and we have a video package for the California clinical exam as well. And we keep our information up to date. The ASWB exam changed as of 2018, and we have 2 volumes that systematically cover every element that's in the handbook. So we have a 2-day class for that, we have a test bank for it, and all the other components, books, flashcards, audios, charts. So in closing, let's talk about some of the benefits of our program here at Gerry Grossman Seminars. We are up to date with the current exam format. For law and ethics, we have classes, we have test banks, we have books, flashcards, and audios all addressing that. We have an examination readiness scorecard, so you can really make sure that you, in fact, have done enough questions, as opposed to somebody who might call me up and say, I feel like I'm ready. We're going to call that emotional reasoning. We have test banks for the California clinical exam, for the ASWB exams. We have textbooks that are very well developed. We have current materials, live classes. If somebody's a video learner and that's your mode, then law and ethics, we have a video. We also have a video for the MFT California clinical exam. And also, very importantly, people in live classes can ask questions on the spot of their instructor. Also, people in live classes benefit from the questions that other participants ask, and there's a camaraderie that develops in the classes. People form study groups, etc. So although people can certainly study with us independently, we are an organization that does have live classes throughout the state of California for people to take advantage of. So I hope that you have found this information to be valuable, and certainly we wish you all the best as you approach your examinations.